Everyone knows the iconic show, Tom and Jerry, where Tom chases Jerry most of the time, as most cats would do. If you don't know the show, you're missing out. But what if I told you, instead of Jerry running away from Tom, Jerry just loses fear of Tom all of a sudden, leaving Jerry to be eaten easily? Well, this is possible due to Toxoplasma gondii, a protozoan parasite that infects most species of warm-blooded animals, including humans, and causes the disease toxoplasmosis. It's a nightmare. Instead of avoiding the lion's den, the victim walks right in and embraces the lion, open jaws, shredding claws, slavering jowls, and all to meet its doom. Although T. gondii can infect many different mammal species, it can only reproduce in a few. One of these is the common house cat. This means that somehow during its lifespan, T. gondii has to find its way back to a cat in order to complete its life cycle. T. gondii that are born in house cats often then affect rats when the rodents come into contact with cat feces. The protozoa will grow and thrive inside the rat. The T. gondii then subtly alters the rat's brain chemistry to increase the rodent's chance of getting killed and eaten by a rat. That benefits the parasite by ensuring that it gets transferred to its incubating species. This is thought to be an evolutionary adaptation to help the parasite complete its life cycle. Toxoplasma can sexually reproduce only in the cat gut, and for it to get there, the pathogen's rodent host must be eaten. The parasite infects the brain, forming cysts that produce an enzyme called tyrosine hydroxylase, the limiting enzyme to make dopamine. Although humans are dead-end hosts for the parasite, humans can be affected, and some scientists have suggested that the T. gondii infection can alter human behavior. Because the parasite infects the brain, it is suspected of making people more reckless, even being liable for certain cases of schizophrenia. However, this is still highly controversial and will require more investigation. So, how might we avoid this parasite? Avoid eating raw meat and avoid drinking untreated water. Wear gloves when gardening and remember to wash your hands after. Now, if you are pregnant and you own a cat, please avoid cat litter as much as possible. As these things may look cute, don't let the looks deceive you, as they can really kill your baby with their poop. So please, avoid cat litter as much as possible. This is just a small sample of the overall diversity of parasites known to manipulate host behavior in order to enhance their own transmission. In recent years, increased attention has been paid to parasite manipulation of host behavior, driven in part by exciting new examples and a better understanding of the critical roles such as manipulation plays in the life cycle of the parasite. Another reason for the increased focus is a realization that such parasites are essentially neuroengineers capable of controlling the central nervous systems of the hosts they infect. As such, parasites that have evolved to control behavior represent independent experiments in evolution where genes in two organisms, the host and the parasite, both control the same brain. Perhaps the most important question about parasites that control behavior is why such manipulation arose in the first place. We now know, for example, that parasitism is the most common life history trait to have evolved, having appeared during evolution more frequently than other modes of feeding such as carnivory or herbivory. As many as half of all known species on Earth are parasitic. Like, did you know 3.5 billion people are affected by parasitic infections? Or did you know approximately 1.5 billion people are affected with soil-transmitted health mints worldwide? Health mints are parasitic worms, making this the most common infection in the world. You may or may not have intestinal worms in your stomach right now, but don't freak out. Intestinal worms really do have an incredibly bad reputation, and the thought of them just sneaking around inside our bodies and eating us from the inside is very unpleasant. But just 100 years ago, before toilets and running water was a thing, everybody had regular exposure to intestinal worms. And thanks to modern plumbing, people in the industrialized world have now lost almost all of their worms, with the exception of occasional pinworms in some children. Indeed, many helminths are known to cause diseases and even death in the human population. Parasitic worms are still a big problem in some parts of the world, but for decades, results coming out of lab after lab have shown that some kinds of helminths can be extremely beneficial to their hosts and aren't really parasites at all. Helminths have been a part of the ecosystem of the body for so many millions of years that they have become an integral part of that system. Mutualistic helminths help regulate immune function, stimulating our body to build regulatory networks of immune cells that decrease general inflammation without hurting our immune system's ability to respond to danger. In addition, these helminths produce their own array of anti-inflammatory molecules and give our immune systems much needed exercise, all of which decreases inflammation. Now, there has been some controversy around whether parasite co-infection affect on the outcome of COVID-19. Some researchers agree that co-infection reduces the COVID-19 incidence rate, while others believe that parasites may weaken the infective immune system responses toward protecting from COVID-19. Helminth infections are among the most common infectious diseases. It has also been proposed that helminth co-infection may increase the morbidity and mortality of COVID-19 because the immune system cannot efficiently respond to the virus. In addition, vaccines will be less effective for these patients, but treatment and prevention of helminth infections might reduce the negative effect of COVID-19. Helminth viral co-infections might impair immunity against coronavirus and consequently increase the risk of COVID-19. A parasite in a food chain is capable of changing the flow of energy in the food chain. For example, producers are consumed by herbivores, which are infected by parasites, and these parasites are consumed by hyperparasites. For example, increasing the proportion of possible links that are observed, the number of consumative links between the highest and lowest trophic levels, and the number of species. Parasitism has major impacts on host growth, elementary, and reproduction, which leads to changes in competitive balances between host and non-host species, and therefore affect community structure, vegetation zonation, and population dynamics. By altering host traits, parasites create diverse phenotypes within host populations, thereby expanding ecological niches available to species that interact with their hosts. Thus, parasites might facilitate coexistence and contribute to the maintenance of biodiversity. Parasites can influence biodiversity when they alter the outcome of competitive interactions between host species. A phenotype termed parasite mediated competition. Parasites can also positively contribute to biodiversity by allowing a competitively inferior species to coexist with a dominant species. For example, Anolis genevinus outcompetes Anolis watsasi. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Everywhere on the Caribbean island of Saint Martin, except the isolated interior of the island. Both lizards host a malarial parasite, Plasmodium azophilium. But the two lizards co-occur only where a genovirus is heavily parasiticized. This suggests that malaria reduces the competitive ability of the dominant lizard, thereby allowing the competitively inferior lizard to coexist. In conclusion, we are really just at the beginning of our exploration into parasites that have evolved adaptive manipulation of host behavior as a mechanism to move around the environment. The fact that such machinations have evolved repeatedly in the natural world offers us great opportunities to understand why and how manipulation and include such impressive adaptations into our framework for understanding evolution by natural selection. Now, with the new technology evolving, we are poised to fully understand just how parasite manipulation of host behavior occurs. The challenging step is to determine a causal relationship between individual secretome components and their contribution to the observed behavioral manipulation of the host. One promising thing to address this challenge relies on the recent availability of gene editing tools such as RNA interference and CRISPR-Cas9. By combining these tools, we are getting closer to unraveling the molecular mechanisms of these extraordinary behavioral manipulations. So, thank you. Until next time.